Hey, what's going on? It's Doug Cunnington here. And in this interview, I talked to Christy. And the last time we heard from her, she was making about $100 per month. And that was in January of 2019. But at the time that I did this interview, and around the July timeframe, she had just hit $1,000 per month. And things have continued to grow, which is awesome. So you may remember Christy from that first interview, but she's also written on my blog, Niche Site Project. She gave us some great tips on how to hire writers, on what to do when your site is young and you're not pulling in revenue yet, and how to stay motivated. So you should check out all that stuff after you listen to this interview here. So she drops some, great knowledge on various things on her site. So I'll let her tell the story. I will caution you, she did this interview outside, so there's a little background noise. There's some birds like magpies and stuff like that are making noises. So try to ignore those things. The information's great, and I'll just shoot it over to the interview now. Hey, what's going on? It's Doug Cunnington here from Niche Site Project, and I'm sitting here with Christy. How are you today?
Doing pretty great.
So last time you were on the show, it was many things were different. We were sitting in my kitchen. You were celebrating making like $100 a month or
Yep.
so, and it's about 6 months later, and
You
I
no
want to,
longer live in my town.
yeah, so many things are different, yeah. And congratulations, you just hit a new milestone. So, what sort of revenue are you making now?
Yeah, so I just hit $1,000 a month last month for June. And it was a combo of Amazon, one other affiliate site that I'm part of, and then kind of a referral program that I did with more of like an event-based company. So one of
Okay,
those, and together we got over the milestone. So pretty happy about that.
cool, that's awesome. And how old is the site for people that haven't listened to the other episode yet?
Yep, it is. I started it like brand new as of October 1st last year. And so we're now into July, but I would say most of the content, probably at least like 70%, is more in the 3 to 4 months old range. Because I did a big sprint and I wrote a post about that for you too, but did a big content sprint kind of later down the road. So older ish site now, but most of the content's still pretty green.
Awesome. Very cool. And so just the quick summary is the site was started in around October of 2018. In less than a year, you hit $1,000 a month, and you have quite a few posts out there. So can you just, guess how many posts do you have on your site?
Yeah, so now I think it's around 130, and probably a little over 50% I've outsourced, and the other half-ish I've done by myself. I would say info versus product posts, it's probably 50-50 also.
Okay, cool. So sounds amazing. Now, before we get into more details here, can you just give a little bit of an intro so people have an idea, like your background and how we connected at first and all that kind of stuff?
Yep. So I had been in the marketing world for my whole career. So I started working at a tech company right out of college and did that for 10 years, all just kind of different marketing roles. So doing writing and design and branding stuff and events and just kind of the whole gamut there. And then I decided I wanted to move to Montana, Bozeman, where I met you, of course. And I quit my old job and started my own business. So I run a small business now that's totally separate from my niche site or really anything else that I do. So that's what I do is kind of my full-time job now. But it does give me the flexibility to work from home and start a niche site. And because of the marketing background, it was nice because I had kind of all the pieces that I needed to do it and get it started myself. So,
Gotcha. And did you have much of a background in SEO? Obviously you said you had a lot of marketing
I
experience,
had
but what about SEO?
no background in SEO. Yeah, it was kind of the one piece of marketing that ironically I never did. So we always had a different team that did kind of the digital SEO stuff at the company where I worked. So I never, I've never even looked up keywords. Like I'd never done any calculations of anything. So I was definitely starting from the ground up.
Gotcha. And like, what are your impressions now that you're fairly experienced, like doing SEO? If people ask you questions, like you'd
Mhm.
probably be able to give them some answer. So yeah, what are your impressions now versus like what you thought
Yeah.
before?
Well, I really like doing the SEO stuff now. I don't know that I would have in a corporate environment. I don't think I would have found that quite as fun. But when it's for your own niche site, like you're pretty motivated to find kind of the hidden gems out there. And the more that you start to dig, the more you're like, oh, there's a bunch of underserved content that people really want to learn about that no one is supplying or that really isn't that great. So
Right.
I find it pretty motivational to dig into the keyword side of it now because I just see a lot of potential. So,
Okay. Interesting. And it's another thing like that I want to highlight here. There's so many folks out there that they're like, the space is saturated or all the
mhm.
good ideas are taken or I can't imagine something that isn't already covered. But you found one that
Mhm.
like you could probably put like if you had unlimited resources, you'd probably have like 3 times as much content and stuff like that.
10
So
times as much, probably.
right. So
Yeah.
so they're totally out there and then in
Mhm.
less than a year, you didn't know anything about SEO, but you've managed
No,
to
like
do
I went
this.
from listening, yeah, I listened to 2 podcasts about it. It was before you had a podcast of your own. So I heard you on a different one. And then I heard one other gal's affiliate marketing episode, and I was like, hmm. And then I contacted you, and I was like, let's get coffee.
Right.
So yeah, but I no, I literally knew nothing about it.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so just again, people,
Mhm.
you
Yep.
it can be done. You don't have to have
Again.
a background in anything specific. So, all right. Now let's talk a little bit about like deeper SEO stuff here. So, you are fairly new to SEO, although I would consider you experienced at this point.
Yep.
Um, there are updates that come out all the time since you've been doing this. You've probably seen 2 to 3 like sort of major updates for the Google
Mhm.
algorithm. And it seems like you've stayed clear. Do you have any insight on maybe why? Just speculation, of course.
Well, you told me not to worry about them. So so I just press on. Yeah, I mean that's it kind of just falls in the land of things that are outside my control. I kind of figure. You know, Amazon could restructure in the future and there's nothing I can do about it. So, um my goal is just to stay heads down on the content. So that's where I put my time and focus, and some of the articles will work out and some of them won't, and that's fine. I get closer on what will work out by doing the KGR terms, obviously. But as far as the bigger picture stuff, like what Google is doing and what Amazon is doing, they don't ask me my opinion. So I just keep following kind of the best practices and trust in the process.
Excellent. Now, I will ask about like link building and stuff. So, do you have a? I didn't ask you to prepare anything ahead of time. So, if you don't know the answer exactly, you could just sort of get close enough. But do you know about how many backlinks you have going to your site?
So I have so kind of a next project on my list is really digging into the backlink stuff. So the last time I think that we chatted, the goal was, try to get 30 to 50 kind of intentional backlinks. So that's on the near term goal list. As far as links that are just coming to the site on their own that I haven't really done anything, I think there's a couple hundred, but they're probably mostly junk. If I had to guess, I haven't gone through the entire list line by line. There are, though, some real ones that I have gotten. So I've had some guest posts. Um, I initially started out kind of working with some bloggers in my space, ones that had a website presence so that they had somewhere that they could post about it. So I would say ones that I've intentionally gone out and gotten, maybe in the 20-ish range.
Okay,
Just kind of people that I featured in blogs or guest posters.
perfect. Okay, And I mean, that's great because some people, my observation is they'll publish a few posts, or maybe a lot. Maybe they'll publish 100 of them. They'll start getting traffic and they see that that's working. Like it's very clear. You publish content, people land on those pages, very clear. The guest posting stuff, getting links, there's a pretty big detachment in the time frame and the direct sort of like relationship. So some people will, let's say they'll do 10 guest posts, but they don't see any impact for say 4 to 8 months or something. And then they're like, that didn't work. So then they stop and then they've plateaued. So I think the sort of the 20-25 range is kind of like once you hit that point, like you kind of have enough to like play ball, I guess. So.
Well, and I just kind of think about it. I think when we initially discussed backlinks in general, it's just like building the authority of your site if you're getting the, good ones. So that's something I just want to do anyway, even if it's not like a direct correlation into a huge traffic bump, right? It's just good to have that, I think, because people are sending traffic to your site because they like what you're doing. They like what your content is. That's good. It's also, it's boosted a few specific posts too that were guest posts with people that have larger followings, obviously. And that's always good, especially if people are typing in like my website name. Instead of clicking on a link even. So if someone features it in a video or things like that, like that's really good, I think so.
I agree. All right. So as far as like content, you said you were writing about like half of the content out there. So that indicates you probably like the topic. So do you think that's like an important thing when someone's trying to select their niche and some of the keywords and stuff?
I do. Because I think to keep myself motivated, it has to be something I like. I think that when I start a second site, that will be less important, because I'll kind of have my baby that I actually am really passionate about. And the second site might be one where I'm a little less knowledgeable on the topic or a little less interested in the topic, but I just think it's an underserved niche. But you probably remember when I was picking a niche and I was on the struggle bus trying to figure out if it was like good enough or if it was too crowded because it's kind of crowded, but and I was just back and forth. And then at the end of the day, I was like, but this is what I want to blog about. So I'm just going to do it because this is where I have all my ideas and it motivates me. So
awesome.
For me, It was important.
Cool. And I guess at this point, do you have any other like things to add that may be interesting for people, either about your process or your approach or the site or whatever?
Yeah, I would say I've written a couple things for you on a few topics that I would have found helpful too at the beginning. So on, the first time that I hired writers, that was a new experience for me too. Doing that through Upwork, and I did a big content sprint with them that was, 70 or 80 articles. Going forward, I am in the midst of adding like an FAQ section with shorter posts. So more so for keywords and phrases that just don't warrant 1,500 words, so as much as that's kind of my ideal baseline length for a blog post, there's also plenty of keywords out there that just don't warrant 1,500 words. So I want to put those into kind of more of a structure and make it into an FAQ section. So that's in the works.
Cool. That totally makes sense. And just a little note on the FAQ section. So I put one on Niche Site Project because I was doing all these live streams and people basically were asking the same questions. Now I created the page so I could send people there. I don't know how many people actually go there, to be honest with you.
I've been there.
So some people do. The important people go there.
There you go.
But most people are lazy and they don't go there. But the point is, I did zero keyword research. I didn't need to. I knew people wanted to know that info anyway. And then I just wrote the shortest answer that I could because I know that it didn't matter, right? In fact, most of those have zero, like they wouldn't even show up. They're very long like phrases, but I could see like a huge spike, not a spike, but like a huge like uptick in the number of keywords that my site ranks for. after I published that.
Oh,
So it
nice.
was like tons of long tails. It was very like intentionally interlinked and all that stuff. So I think it'll end up being a great resource that like people will link to because it's a good resource.
Well, and doing the internal links on my own site, those things are kind of ripe for being internal links to me. So those are things where I may not want to do 500 words on that little piece of content within another post, but if it stands alone and it's semi-related, I do a bunch of internal linking. So
Awesome. Very good. Now, do you have questions for me so we could like turn this around? And I know
yeah. Mm-hmm.
we have some details that we can't share here, but if you just want to like flip it around and start asking me questions, go
So I
for it.
think, for me, it's kind of what does the next phase look like as I'll obviously keep going with content, right? So I'll keep doing everything that I'm doing. Um, but it's kind of like, what do I do now that I have some actual data built up? So I have several months of good data. I now have, I could tell you what the top 20, 30, 40, 50 articles are, right? So now that I know that, what kind of up leveling of that content do I go back and do versus working on new content? We've talked about that a little bit, and I'm starting to dabble. But just kind of getting your thoughts on where's the right place to spend your time when your site is at this stage to kind of get that hockey stick, to continue.
Okay. So the good part for me is there's no like real right answer, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you
If
like
there are wrong answers, you could say that
I
too.
was gonna say there are only wrong answers to this, or there are only like partially right ones. So there's only a couple things that you can do. So you can spend time on content, or you can spend time on building links. The content side, you have covered fairly well. You're publishing new stuff. You have tons of keywords. And like you said, you have data on like what is ranking, what's doing okay, what maybe needs some help. So I would probably like focus more on auditing and improving the existing content, because you've published so much. And like let's say for example, you continue to publish, you double your content, you have like 250 posts or so, and then you try and audit it, like it'll be even more overwhelming than it is currently. So I would pause and maybe not publish anything new for a little bit, or turn it down,
Yep.
and then make sure that like you're doing well on the stuff that's out there. Like you already mentioned, focusing on the top 20 posts or the top 20% or whatever, to give you a little bit of like prioritization.
Yep.
And I would refer to a few resources. One is like, your Search Console data, which you have insight for those top 20 posts, like what keywords are bringing in impressions, what's bringing in clicks, and what you'll look for, the areas, the topics where you're getting impressions, potentially getting clicks, maybe very few clicks, but you're getting impressions, but you're not actually like optimized or even trying to rank for those.
Right.
Just by adding like a little content about that topic, you'll probably be able to, rank immediately. Because you're already potentially ranking on that. Yeah.
For existing posts, when you're going back and kind of tweaking them, are there things that you should not be touching again that would throw off Google? If these are kind of my top 20 posts, I also don't want to break them. Right.
Yeah.
So what don't you touch about them?
So my rather arbitrary rule that seems to be working okay, and no one's told me it's like totally messed things up for them. I try not to delete more than maybe like 20% of like the whole thing. In fact, I rarely delete anything. I'm mainly just like editing, like copy editing it to tighten it up, clean it up. Sometimes, especially if you didn't write it yourself, there's going to be some fluffy, redundant phrases that you could just, clean up. You're really good at that. You actually edited some of my stuff before, and I was like, man,
I like that part.
yeah. So you could go through, edit it, tighten it up a little bit. So that's generally like the risk, right? If you were to remove like a whole section, you're like, oh, don't do that. I wouldn't really change up the subheadings too much. You can again tighten them up, make it a little more snappy
Yep.
or like copyrighty or something like that. But generally, you're adding content, so adding content is almost never gonna mess it up.
Okay.
Further, like you're adding content based on like data that you have, so you're not like guessing. You're like, hey, this
Right.
person is also interested in milkshakes, right? I was just thinking it's very hot here today, so I guess I was just thinking of a milkshake.
It sounds good.
So improving content is probably where I would go first. And some of the easy stuff, like you could even find like tutorials and blog posts on, reviewing your data in the Search Console and then seeing like, oh, do I need to like change the title, the meta title, so that it targets a term a little bit better that maybe you're ranking for, but maybe you didn't know you were going to rank for. So just changing the title can improve your click-through rate, right? So let's say you're ranked number 5.
Yep.
You change the title, you make it like, don't make it clickbaity, but for the sake of this example, you make it really enticing. And then, I mean, Google wants people to click on it. So you'll move up in the rank, not by changing the content, but by just changing the title. So sometimes it's like, all right, let's audit the titles. Let's do that first. It's really fast. And then maybe you go back and start adding, 200 words based on, the criteria that you see in the Search Console.
Would you add, it feels like an easy place to add would be for articles that don't already have an FAQ section at the bottom of the article itself. That is an easy place.
Yes.
Would you agree to that?
Yeah, super easy. Yeah. Add 5 or 8 questions, 100 words each. All of a sudden, you've added whatever 15 or 25% more content. And it's like each one of, you don't even have to do it all at once. You can like, you can do three FAQs for one, depending on how much time you have that day or whatever, and then keep going.
Well, and kind of what I've been doing is I made a checklist of all the things that I thought I should either double check that existed in the top 20 posts or that I wanted to add or change or whatever. And I've just been going line item by line item in a spreadsheet and checking off that I went through each of those for each post. So I don't know, that's slightly less overwhelming to me to do it that way, because then I know exactly which posts I've already touched and I'm not going to go back to those until I get to the rest. So
that's a good way to do it. Yeah.
And you can do it in front of the TV, which is great.
Yeah. Okay. So the other thing I would look at, and this is, I think part of it is my fault from like just the content I produce and me promoting the keyword golden ratio and like the fact that you don't have to have backlinks. But if you have backlinks, it's way better. All right. So I don't emphasize that enough because I need to get people in the door. But now that you're here, backlinks are really helpful. And most of the time, actually a few people that I was coaching, they're like, like, I think I should start a new site. And I'm like, you're ranking like number 3 for most of your terms. Like if you start a new site, yeah, you can incrementally like make a little bit more money. And it feels good to start something new, but you're talking about a year, 8 months or whatever.
Right.
And I was like, build links, like build a lot of links. And there's so many ways to do it. I mean, you came up with like a ton of creative ways to do that already. Which we haven't even talked about publicly, which is fine. If people are interested, they can leave a comment on the video or shoot an email to feedback@doug.show, and then I'll know. But I was going to say, do you feel like you're ranking as high as you can for as many terms as you feel like you can rank for?
I mean, I think what I need to do is kind of pull that whole report of what I am ranking for, right? Which you've helped me with in the past, which is great. To get a better sense of it. So I've kind of tried to stay out of that level of detail initially because I don't want to be checking stuff every day instead of actually doing stuff every day. So I've tried to be like, you know what, content is the thing. I'm going to focus on that for the first months. And then now I've only really started dabbling in the data to even kind of look and see where I am. Just because I didn't want to demotivate myself in the midst of trying to produce so much content. So I don't know
Cool.
if that's right or wrong, but that's
Well,
what I needed to do.
I mean, you're doing this as fast as like, I could have hoped,
Fast as I can.
Yeah, right. And you have the revenue to show for it. Cause I was going to say, I know some people, they're like, all right, I'm going to publish 300 posts. And they publish 300 posts in like 2 years. And they're like, how do I make money now? And I'm like, oh man, like
Yeah,
you missed the point here.
backwards.
Um, so, so your approach is fine. But what I was going to say is, I think focusing on getting backlinks, even to the point where you're like, all right, you published a lot of content. I think the post that you wrote for me was like 84
Yeah,
posts in 90 days, right? It's very popular, by the way.
very tiring.
So yeah, so you did all that.
Mhm.
And I think just imagine if you were on like podcasts and other YouTube channels or whatever, people interviewed you. It's a little bit faster, right? So if you do an interview like you're doing with me now, like you end up getting a backlink from their site, and then potentially people are gonna just find your site. They'll Google you, and then they'll get to it, right? So that's maybe an easy way to get backlinks, is to just be a guest on other shows. Aside from the fact, right, like you could guest post and stuff, but like honestly,
Yeah, I
podcasts are an
actually
easier
haven't.
route.
Yeah, I haven't done that at all. I haven't, ironically, written a guest post for someone else in my niche, which I could do.
Right.
But I guess I haven't felt like that was maybe the best use of time yet. Um, I do have a backlink question though, which is, if you write a top 10 doghouse, or dog toy producers or whatever, and then you contact all those companies and you're like, hey, you're featured on my list of whatever. Would you, share this out? Obviously, that's nice if people click on those links that they share out, if they say yes. Um, do social media links technically count as backlinks?
I think technically, yeah, they do. But generally they're no follow. However, right? So there's all these caveats. So yes, they're links. They're probably no follow links, but if like the right
Right.
person or company shares it, then and you get a lot of traffic, like I think that matters.
Okay.
Um, but I wouldn't spend time on that. In fact, I get pitches fairly often. Actually, even to niche site projects, someone was like, "Hey, like, they wanted something. I don't know what it was, and then we'll share it with our social media followers." And I'm like, "I don't give a fuck about your social media followers. Like,
Right.
who is gonna follow a link on social
Yeah.
media?" I'm like, no one gives a fuck at all.
I
Sorry,
only
I'm
do
just
it
like, I hate
like
social media.
featuring someone, and then I let them know that they were featured. Right. So I've never reached out to someone and been like, hey, would you feature this thing that's like tangentially related to you? Like, I don't ever do that because that feels weird. But if we do feature someone, then I think it's okay to reach out to those brands and be like, hey, you're in this list, and I
Yeah.
don't know.
And that would be the right way to do it, instead of like, and I'm not sure, maybe they think they're whatever 30,000 across all their platforms or something like that.
Yeah.
But honestly, I'm trying to ignore social media. So
Right.
basically I'm like, I don't care if you have, I don't care how many
Yeah.
follow, if the right person, but yeah.
Right.
Anyway, so technically, to answer your question, it is a backlink, but technically I wouldn't really care about that. And I think the hard part for you is probably going to be, like we talked about before, just like everyone else, the like feedback that you get from a backlink is very slow, and I feel like it's more of a cumulative effect. And when we stop recording and finish the call, I'll show you like just some data for Niche Site Project, where like I'm doing more like not more guest posting specifically, but more like outreach for bigger platforms. So like actually, well, I can just talk about it here. So you edited for me the HubSpot post that I did. It went live, and an interesting thing happens on very big websites is other sites syndicate it all over the place, right? So I had a couple of those things happen, and like my backlinks went up like dramatically
Yeah.
because of that. So, and other people, like, it's partially name recognition. I don't think many people actually followed the link. But now all of a sudden it's like, oh, Doug wrote a guest post at HubSpot or whatever.
And it was beautifully edited, and so I'm going to share it.
Right, yeah. So it was
Sure.
it was much tighter after you took out all the extra words. So
Well, I think the other thing that we talked about with backlinks that you're not trying to go get yourself was that kind of doing your own statistics or publishing your own data is the kind of thing that really attracts other people linking to your site. So I would throw that out there as something too, where if you can kind of produce your own metrics for a topic, that's good. Like I have a little project doing that who knows if it'll turn into anything, but maybe. But I've also seen it for other niche sites too, where it's like, if you're going to be creating your own data that no one else is doing, that's something that's really ripe for people to start linking to. So.
Yeah. In fact, I got a good idea for you. Again, just generalized, so like anyone can do it anywhere. But you could do a survey, right? So you could do a survey for whatever, and then you have the data, right? You can share it with other people. And this is one that I've thought of, but I haven't done before. So obviously, the more data you have, the better. So you can email, like get in touch with these bigger like bloggers or vloggers or podcasters or whatever. Hey, we're doing or I'm orchestrating a survey. If you want to be a part of it, like we'll all cross promote it and blah blah blah. And then you end up being the hub, right? And if you're the hub for something, you already know this, right? So like if you're the hub for something, like people see you as the like entity that brought everything together. So like you're like elevated as high or higher than the people that are in it. So if you bring in people on that are bigger than you, then you look like you know what you're doing. I've done this not that specifically, but I end up, you know, if you could organize things and like set up a meeting
every day. I do this.
yeah. So anyway,
4,000 surveys.
You can do that in like any industry, basically. And then once, like you said, once you have the data, then people will want to talk to you.
Well, because we're, you know, the industry that I was in, which was tech, like it was all white papers and reports all the time, right? And that's how you generated leads, and that's how you made the news, and that's, you know, is by getting together data that's unique and presenting it in a readable format, and there you go. So
yeah. So okay, any other questions you have for me?
I mean, I think it's just, you know, kind of what the next phase is and what is the best way to keep the momentum going, you know?
Sure.
That, you know, every month you start from scratch, right? So every month you're like, well, it worked last month, but is it going to work this month? So kind of what do you think are the best places for your time outside of uploading existing content? Like, what else should I be doing at this point?
So unfortunately, it's very boring. So again, like
Just
I keep leaving
people to cook my content.
Yeah. Well, it's like improving the content, maybe adding a little bit more, and then getting the backlinks. So it's hard, right? Because like whatever you pick, you won't know the alternative.
Right.
All of those are positive things. So if you do one, it's probably going to be fine. I think I was kind of hinting at, I mean, I think you have enough content right now where you're probably better, like you'll get more bang for the buck in your time and resources and all that by putting the backlinks in now. Because let's say it takes 6 or 8 months for them to really like show their impact. Well, that'll be great whenever that happens. But the longer you wait, the longer it'll be. So what is a bird attacking you? Is that a magpie?
I started feeding them, and it's turned into like a Hitchcock movie back here. It's very intense all the time. Nature is very stressful.
So so to get back to the answer to your question is generally like if you spend time on those areas, it will generally be fine.
Okay.
And a lot of times, like in the course, I get you started on the first sprint and then don't really guide you after that. That's intentional because some people are going to really gravitate towards one area. Some people don't do all the work they're supposed to, and they just like skip the backlinks part and they just keep publishing content. And then when I catch up with them later, I'm like, well, did you do, the backlinks
Right.
as prescribed? No, but I published, 10 times more
Right.
content. And I'm like, well, go back to the beginning part. And
Right.
then if you do that, like it'll take a little while, but if you trust the process, like it generally pays off. So,
Well, and the nice part about focusing on that and not just trying to do another content sprint is that it's much cheaper, which I don't mind right now. So, you
right.
know, improving existing content is something I can do myself and it's pretty easy. So,
Yeah. And then, I mean, if you do the backlink,
mhm.
sort of the couple ideas I threw out where
Yeah.
it's like maybe do a survey, maybe
Yeah.
do podcasts, like that's generally just, sending some emails, scheduling
Yep.
some time. You're now using Skype very effectively. So,
Thank you. Thank you. I worked in tech, as you can tell.
all right. Well, okay. Let's finish it up here. So, do you have any tips for people that are either just getting started or maybe they haven't started their site yet?
Well, I actually have two sets, but I've already written them both for you. So I would say probably, I'm not, I think only one of them has been published already, but the other one will probably come soon. But the first one I wrote was about all the things that I wish I didn't spend time on. So that would be a tip is don't spend your time in any of those places. It's just kind of looking back what really helped my site or not isn't always the things that you want to work on just because they're fun. Um, so I wrote a piece about that I think is useful. And then the one I just did was kind of how to stay motivated when you're not making money yet, because that's going to be most of your quite a few first months. Um, and that's just hard. It's just hard to do when you're sitting in your house working on your niche site and you're like, I don't know if this is working. I made $40. So my tips are kind of avoid doing the things that are really going to waste your time instead of boost your site in the 8 months that it takes for it actually to happen. Um, and then, even now crossing $1,000, you go back every month and you're like, yeah, but is it going to work this month? So I probably need to reread it myself to be like, yes, it's going to work. It's fine. So trust the process and just press on.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Christy. I appreciate the time, and I'm sure we'll have you back on in probably a couple more months to see what's going on.
Yeah, when I hit $10,000.
All right. Yeah. You got a two month time limit.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for all the help.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks again to Christy for joining me and sharing her story here. I'm happy to report I chatted with her just in the last week or two. She's hit $1,500 for the first time. So things are continuing to grow. And this is all under like 1 year, which is amazing. She had no experience doing affiliate marketing at all. And again, I encourage you to check out some of her posts over on Niche Site Project. She is an excellent writer, so I asked her to help me out on a couple posts. One of the best ones, one of the most popular ones, is about publishing 84 articles in 90 days, and she outsourced like everything using my templates and stuff. She amped it up a little bit, improved it, and put her own spin on it. So check out that post. I'll put a link in the description. Stay tuned for other interviews with her in the future where we talk about hitting $1,500 a month and probably some other topics as well. And by the way, if you're brand new to the channel and you're still watching this right now, that's amazing. Thank you. Have a look at some of the other videos. Please subscribe, like other videos, ask questions in the comments, all that kind of business. Hit the bell for notifications, everything, right? We'll catch you on the next one. Have a great day.